Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. So this is my talk. Your README has a voice, and yes, your repo can talk and has plenty to say. So about me, I've been spending about the last decade in the DevOps space, but at my heart, I'm just a technologist. I enjoy using tech to not only improve myself, but the people around me. And I've been, playing with AI in the practical sense, even before ChatGPT. So here's some of the kind of experiments that I've had over the times. The first one's going back to the 2020s, using that style transfer technique to do this hackathon project to create art to get printed on the walls of the company I was working for. And then I've had this recurring Mother's Day video that I've been doing for the past couple of years, where I've taken, used AI in various ways to create a Mother's Day memento for my wife. The last one here was I took Sono and that face swap technology with the lip syncing to create a song for her. And then I have a book called Stallabella that's inspired by my daughter's playful stalling habit. That images were AI generated, the text was AI generated. It's on Amazon for $12.99 if you want it. I'm happy to give you a free copy. But that also has an accompanying video that animated the whole book. And also I published the how I did it and all the prompts and everything on GitHub. So I'm not hiding anything. You may see in this presentation too, I make quite often use of emojis. I just want to make it clear that those emojis are not AI generated. I crafted all those emojis myself. Today's agenda, I'm gonna introduce you to Repo Radio. I'm gonna give you the key insights behind what I learned with audio docs. I'm gonna show you how to get started with it. I'm gonna give you some pro tips and how to get the best quality out of this with at least kind of human in the loop process. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about future roadmap for the project and some closing thoughts. So I've been really interested in trying to figure out the intersection of AI and DevOps. Certainly, it's easy enough to use DevOps practices to deploy AI services, and it's easy enough to think about using AI services to, generate configuration and use AI tools. But I think there's this intersection of the two where they kind of meld and overlap. And that was kind of the genesis of Repo Radio, was to kind of explore this space and play kind of like I did with those other projects. So what is Repo Radio? It's a CLI tool that turns the information in your Git repos into audio narrative format, much like a podcast. So the commit history, the source code, markdown files, anything that's in there you can make use of. The goal of this is to make what is normally kind of more boring or at least not engaging documentation more engaging, and tell a story like a podcast, and to transform those changes into kind of a human-friendly rhythmic flow. So if you go to reporadio.io, you can give it a try. There's 3 examples there. There's a welcome, changelog, and onboarding. I'll give you a quick sample of what the intro sounds like.
What is Repo Radio? Let's start with the basics. Repo Radio is an open-source CLI tool that turns your Git repository into a podcast, making your codebase more accessible to both contributors and consumers. It's an exciting, innovative approach to code documentation and uses the power of OpenAI's API to generate narrated audio from your codebase. All this happens directly from the command line, using a tool called Repo Radio CLI. Key features: analyzing your repository. Firstly, one of Repo Radio's impressive features is its ability to conduct a detailed analysis of your repository. It looks into your README files, parses your code structure, examines metadata, and even your commit history. By doing so, it gathers all the necessary information to create comprehensive audio content.
So that's one example. There's many episodes, a couple of episodes for the Welcome podcast version that you can check out if you're interested in that. So with this project, I'm really just kind of following the vibes here. So there's a lot of early adoption of AI, but one of the strong things that we're seeing is translation. So it's not just like spoken word, which is, one language to another, but, from one document type to another, or code examples like TypeScript to Python, or even a log file to an MD file, explanation of that log. The DORA report gives us some evidence of this in the 2024 AI report citing a 7.5 increase in documentation quality. Developers generally don't love writing documentation, and we see that AI at least helps that get them from 0 to 1 and a place to start iterating on that documentation. And with Repo Radio, I'm trying to lead into that AI superpower of translation. So multimodality, we're seeing this as kind of a coming trend with AI. So it's beyond just the markdown HTML files. You can start thinking of the content that is you're publishing to your repos or just on the web in general is more raw material that people are feeding into the various AI systems to reshape that and reformat into a format or personalized version of it that better meets their learning style and their interests and pulls the kind of signal of what they're looking for out of that unstructured information. So this creates new possibilities. One is, being able to engage with that documentation while you're driving or while you're on a walk with a dog, or even while you're doing other tasks that don't take high cognitive load, maybe like checking your email or, working on your grocery list for your order pickup. And we're seeing, products come out like Notebook LLM, which was one of the first ones to kind of make this podcast style audio from web content a common or a possibility. And then we're also seeing Linear, which is a project management platform, also has incorporated a similar functionality into their system. And this all kind of complements this concept of continuous AI, which I think is kind of, when I was talking about where these AI and DevOps overlap, I think this is a concept comes pretty close to that idea. Let's see here. Yeah, so we're seeing this was coined by GitHub, and we're seeing this happen where we're incorporating AI directly into the CI pipeline to enable things that weren't possible before. Certainly, for example, the pull request agents that are reviewing your pull request is one example of this. Repo Radio falls under this umbrella, or this concept under the continuous AI umbrella of continuous documentation. So continuously creating and improving docs, and Repo Radio is extending that by offering multimodality learning material generation on top of that. And it's a CLI tool which has kind of become a common pattern with Claude Code and Gemini CLI. So you can integrate Repo Radio into your CI/CD pipeline. Let's see. So I figure we'll go over generating an example podcast. So to get started, the Repo Radio project has a LLM TXT file. You can pass that to your coding agent of choice. And what that'll do is make sure all the dependencies you need for Repo Radio installed, like Golang, and pull that repo down pull that install that Repo Radio CLI if you don't already have it, and let you know if you have your Open API key available as an environmental variable. If not, it'll give you some instructions on how to do that, and then it'll also guide you to the next step, which is to use the create function or create command. So it would be repo radio create, and we're going in this example we're going to create a changelog. Let's see, maybe it's a little bit bigger so I can see it. So basically, repo radio works in this particular function works in a chat loop, and then it has this in the prompt. There's an instruction there that says to ask you one question at a time until it has enough context to generate this podcast YML file. And within that, it will pull in your common context, which is for the most part just the README and file structure to start with. And then here's kind of the prompt for creating that. So it's got some rules about what to do. It'll pull in the README file tree structure, and then also the JSON schema that describes the podcast YML. So at no point is it actually given what questions to ask you. It's inferring it all from the JSON schema. So it knows it needs to ask you all those questions one at a time until it has enough information to generate that. And then that becomes the podcast YML. So here's the podcast YML. It's got a title, description of what the podcast is going to be about that it gets from your conversation. So it'll ask you, what do you want to call this? What is it about? And custom instructions about how you want Repo Radio to treat the content. Maybe you have specific things that you want to include or exclude from that content, or clarify. The voicing, whether you want it to be engaging and informative, or if you want it to be something else, and a type of changelog. And then it will try to create each one of the episodes, which is just this. It's not the full episode. It's just each of these is just the instructions for generating the episode. So the title, the description, instructions, and invoicing again. So as far as that, at the end of the loop, it'll try its best to come up with these. And then here, it'll suggest inclusions. This will be added later when we do the generate function. So that'll be pulled in the context, and any commands which will be executed, and the output of those will be added to the context for the generate function, generate command. So Repo Radio CLI generate changelog will then loop through that array of episodes. And for each one of those, it'll try to create an episode number MD file. And this all ends up in this repo radio whatever podcast episodes directory in your project that you can check into your Git repository. So it'll loop through each one of those, try to generate the script for that, pull in any context based on the includes and commands that you specified. And before this, command, you can edit that podcast.yaml file any way you want beforehand. And then after that, you can pass in the audio flag. And so you can review the scripts that were generated. At that point, you can make any edits, or you can tweak the podcast YML file and try regenerating the scripts again with and give it more instructions in the podcast YML files, instructions and descriptions to better tweak the output of the scripts. And then with the generate changelog audio, that will actually turn each one of those scripts into a MP3 file. And at that point, you can decide to check it in, or you can potentially do that as part of a release process and make those artifacts in the release process, or push them to some other data store like S3 or whatever have you. So let's see what that sounds like.
The playlist JSON generation. Here's what you need to know. we've introduced a new playlist.go module specifically designed to support playlist episodes. This feature seamlessly integrates into your podcast generation routine, producing a playlist JSON file with every execution of the generate command. No extra flags needed anymore. Enhancements have been made to the generate episode summary function, utilizing the OpenAI API, ensuring your podcasts not only highlight a...
All right, so that was a sample of what to expect. It pulled that, ran that git commit log, did the change between the two versions, and took all that information and generated the podcast based on the instructions. So the goal of Repo Radio is to be really flexible. It's not really want to give you all the power to customize it to your liking. So there's an init command that will add a prompts folder to your .repo radio file and put all the prompts that are embedded in the binary in that file, and you can tweak those to your needs. So you can start thinking about doing other types of podcasts or other types of audio narrative documentation. You can, for example, do maybe deep dives on a particular module in your repo, and incident reviews, explainers of your CI/CD pipeline, additional learning and onboarding stuff like architecture tours, contributor guides, tech debt. You could curl, because you have access to commands, you could curl out to other resources or write scripts, bash scripts that pull in context for each one of those episodes. You can think about cross-team communication and create individual team podcasts, maybe one for marketing, one for engineering, all from the same underlying source material. And that's some things to start thinking about when you're using this tool. So some practical advice. Again, it's AI generated, so expect that human in the loop has to happen at least until you've kind of tweaked it a bit. Try it on not just your projects, but other libraries that you need to get oriented on. Start with just a high level kind of lay of the land overview and get feedback on that, and use that feedback to tweak your podcast YML instructions and descriptions in each one of the episodes to better align it with what people expect. Start thinking about your commit messages. Look at like conventional commits framework to make sure your commits are detail, have a lot more information than maybe you're used to putting in those. You can certainly use AI to help you with that. Enrich the context with like external information, because you have the commands array right there. You can pull in more information from outside the repo to enrich it. So roadmap going forward. There's no real voice. The voicing options aren't exposed yet. I'm looking at adding that to it, but more voicing options, more options besides just the OpenAI text-to-speech translation. 11 Labs is really great at that, and it's got some really high-quality voicing. More models like Gemini or local models would be really great. Models at different stages. If you're doing a big context pull, you probably want a model that's got really big context window. But if you're just doing things that are less context, you can use a smaller model for that. Repo Rad.io kind of discuss a little bit on there about potential monetization options. One would be like hosted stations that are either private or maybe even freemium with ad support. That could be really interesting for like the open source community as potential like revenue share model, where you post your whatever, React uses it, and then they get some kind of kickback from any kind of ads that are on that React station. Podcast player that's embedded in the app. I've got one right now that's just kind of a Jekyll deployment to GitHub pages. but it'd be nice if that was embedded in the application. You could at least generate it or boot that up from the command. Mobile app or other distribution methods, maybe even distributing on all the podcast providers or some of the podcast providers like Apple or Spotify, and just better support for larger projects. It's expected at this point. It has been play tested on larger code base projects, but I think there's more that can be done with smart context gathering and compaction of context to support that. So the project's still young, looking for feedback. Want to, tell me what worked or what didn't work. Feature ideas. You can find everything on, Repo Radio on the GitHub page. You can contact me on LinkedIn. And I have this kind of side hustle consultancy where I'm playing around with some of these, trying to work with companies to tease out agentic processes. And there's you can chat with me. You'll find a chat with me button there, and you can schedule a meeting on my meeting calendar. Here's a couple other stations, of course, Repo Radio, repo-rad.io, and my personal AI project I used it on to explain what that's about, so you can check those out. And then some closing thoughts here. So we live in pretty exciting times, or terrifying times, depending on what your perspective is, but I tend to kind of lean more towards the excitement about this stuff. For this project, part of the motivation was to kind of lean into the agentic coders, because at my day-to-day job, we didn't have complete access over everything, so I wanted to see what was possible, and they became my teammates. They helped me refine the idea, plan the implementation, produce the code and tests. When I originally pitched this idea, I was hoping there was going to be more of an enterprise adoption story, and I would be able to tell you all how great this works at the enterprise level, but that didn't really happen. Instead, I think I got more clarity about where things are going, where I want to be next. I realized in my role at a larger company than I've historically been used to, that I felt siloed in that role, in a senior DevOps role, and that there was more that I could do, but artificially siloed, and I wasn't really living up to the kind of DevOps philosophy of breaking down silos. Instead, I was just siloed myself. So with that, I decided it gave me the motivation to leave that organization and go to an organization that kind of better aligned with where I wanted to be next. And this project was a way to help guide me there. So my message is, treat these tools as teammates, collaborate with them, build one thing through all these projects. And like the examples that I showed you at the beginning, it showed me that, with these tools, I can do things that didn't think I could do. I didn't know I could write I didn't write the book. I didn't know I could produce a book. I didn't create, I didn't produce the and record the videos and do the animations, but I was able to create videos from it. And with Repo Radio, it gave me the team to make this project happen, where before, time constrained as an adult with a kid and a family and work, it's hard to find the free time for these kinds of things. So my message is to look at these tools as a way to amplify yourself and to play with them in a playful manner. And from that, you'll learn kind of where the edges are and what is truly possible with them, and what is the force multiplier for you, because people using these tools have different force multipliers. What works for you and makes you more efficient may not work for somebody else. So looking forward to the open sessions. Let's chat. Really interested in talking about this concept of continuous AI. I think there's all this abstraction that's, LLMs are going to create what I think is this agentic ops needs of tracing evals, cost attribution, model versioning, deployments, kind of what happened to the cloud, when cloud adoption started to rise just 10 years ago, I think is going to happen with these AI agents, and of course, security. And, start thinking about building your team as this kind of personal AI infrastructure to help amplify you and do things that weren't possible, or just, do things with higher quality and more thoughtfulness. That's all I have for today. Thank you.